Now, Israel has put certain procedures in place for the return of the hostages, including making sure they get immediate medical care and psychological counseling, and even assistance with their diet. 48 days in captivity, the extent of the horrors are unknown. So Dr. Danny Brom, founding director of Metiv, the Israel Psychotrauma Center. It's a trauma for the nation, but right now it's a trauma for the hostages, and one can only imagine what the last 48 days have been like. Talk to us about this unprecedented situation for these 236 known hostages.
Yes, well, to be honest, I don't think this is the first time that we're talking about people being kept hostage. It has happened in different places in the world. It has happened to POWs, but still, children is something else, and families is something else. And so it is hell. And what you do in hell, you survive. And that's the only thing that's important when you are there. And surviving means you become very focused on anything that can help you to survive, which probably means you're trying to be in contact with those who are terrorizing you. You try to be nice to them, but that also has a price. We know about the so-called Stockholm Syndrome,
sure.
People who then start to feel empathy for the people who keep them hostage. So these are all things that we have to hear about later. Now, one of the first things that needs to be said is that the psychological consequences of this are not illness. They are not to be treated. They need to get back to what we call normal life, and their families, if they are intact, and they need to process what they're going through, what they went through. But we should be very careful not to say that they are traumatized and they need treatment. They need a warm environment. Children need their parents, and maybe the parents need to get some information about what they can expect and how to deal with that. But they're not ill.
It's so interesting when you say that, of course, prisoners, people taken hostage, it's not a new thing in war. However, what is unique in this case is the fact that the terrorists, Hamas, actually filmed what happened. And many people sitting right now in Israel have seen video footage of their loved ones, and they don't know if they're alive or not. They've seen them injured, potentially. There is a little girl believed to be in Gaza who has lost both her parents. She will come back, hopefully, potentially she's on that list, and she comes back to finding out that she doesn't have parents anymore, and she will hopefully be joined by the rest of her family, and life, as you say, will eventually carry on. But that trauma is unprecedented, and there will be video evidence for life of what unfolded on that day. It compounds the trauma, surely.
So we shouldn't only talk about trauma. It's a bit overused at this moment. There's also grief. I think the whole nation is grieving for all those who've been killed.
No doubt about it.
And also about the ideas we had about our nation, about the state. We thought that we are safe. And this is an enormous thing people are grieving about. Can we trust the borders? Can we trust the army? Can we trust the government? This is something that needs to be worked on to restore that, because without that trust, it'll be very hard to continue what we call normal life. We need that trust that someone is taking care of us. So I think there's a lot of grief, and grief is a long-term issue with ups and downs, and we need to make sure that that can go well. It's a long process.
Talk to us as well about the uncertainty that exists for so many families and the psychological strategy, so to speak, by Hamas, saying 10 people are going to be released. It doesn't happen. It's another sleepless nights for people who, again, are still waiting to hear if their loved ones are alive. They may have died 48 days ago. They just don't know. And this game that Hamas is playing, not only filming what they did, not only then denying some of the atrocities, even though they filmed it, but even up to this point, playing the psychological warfare.
Yes, terrorism basically is not about killing people. It's about creating terror. It's about making a whole nation afraid so that we won't function. It's basically something that tries to get to the core of what a nation is, which in a way is our economy. That's what terrorism is trying to do, to get to our economy because we don't dare to leave our houses. And I think in a way, they're successful with that, and that's what makes us so with a lack of control and the feeling that of helplessness, and that is something that needs to be restored. We are grieving that.
And as you say, there's also that pride that Israelis had about feeling safe within the country. And Doron, I want to bring you in here because there is so much controversy over this apparent deal. We are talking about, for now, hopefully 50 hostages, and in return, 150 Palestinian prisoners, women and teenagers. But these people have committed egregious offenses against Israeli civilians, and what that message does for the Israeli psyche right now.
I think in the end, the Israeli public, in terms of the release of those 150, because those are attempts to murder, those are not the convicted murderers, I think you will find out that this is not the price that the Israelis are so worried about. I think the Israeli public wants to see those hostages back. He wants to see the kids and the mothers and the families back. And I think the Israeli society is afraid that this might conclude the campaign, and we won't make the objective that we want: conquering Hamas, eliminating Hamas as a ruler of Gaza, and getting the other hostages. So I think this is where the fears of the public is right now. And I think definitely something happened to our self-image about ourselves as a confident, victorious society. Now we have to readjust and think what are the threats that we are and what kind of environment we live in, and we get back to ourselves.
Certainly many unknowns right now. Exactly. Very briefly, Doctor, I wanted to ask you, we're talking about the psyche of a nation, grieving, mourning, many questions and hoping right now, but we have seen unity. We have seen people coming together, working on projects, initiatives to help communities in need, open their homes as well. An important message, and certainly something that Israelis can be very proud of right now.
Yes, and I think that is what also should be utilized for future. This willingness to help each other, which is very helpful for every person who does that. Now, we shouldn't think only about, now we need therapy or now we need mental health institutions to grow tremendously. We know that helping others is tremendously helpful for the one who extends the help. So there are ways we can continue to build these assets of community resilience, of helping each other, but institutionalizing that, making sure that this doesn't go away. We do need each other.
And we do need time.
Yeah.
Dr. Danny Brom, thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate your insights on this day. Doron Avital, thank you as well. Stay with us. We've got more to discuss.